Good morning. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the joy and honor of serving this congregation as its minister. We are delighted to be gathered here together today in this community of love, this community of justice, this community of striving to be better in our hearts and in the world, and this community of hope. Our worship today touches on and speaks of painful things, some of which may be hard to hear for some of us. We gather in the face of continued violence against our LGBT community with our neighbors and kin in Colorado in our hearts as they deal with yet another shooting at an LGBT club last night. Our service today centers on the Trans Day of Remembrance and on anti-trans and anti-queer violence and the call for resistance. I invite you to practice self-care, to reach out to those around you, to reach out to those who will listen to your heart, to breathe and to pause as you need. Come, whoever you are, the prophet wrote. Do you hear that voice calling you, calling us, that voice which calls us here today, together in this room, made holy by our presence and by the sacred breath that we share in our singing and speaking and silence? That voice which calls us to remember that we are not alone and that we are inextricably linked to all other life, woven into a vast tapestry of existence of which we are a powerful, integral, and holy part. And just as we have been called together today, we act as the voice, the heart, the hands of another call, the call to move with the wanderers, to sing and dance with the worshipers, to proclaim the memory of those who have taken their leave, to wrap the despairing and the broken in the arms of love and community, and to hold the hands of all of us who have broken our vows, and call us back again and again and again to the covenant and work of justice, humility, and steadfast faithfulness. For this we are together today. So, my friends, come, yet again, come, let us worship together. And as we begin our worship together, I invite you to remain seated as we invoke and invite the spirit of love and hope and justice into our hearts as we sing together, Gathered Here, number 359. The words are on the screen. We're going to sing this through 3 times. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near.
Light our chalice and state our unison aspiration, everyone. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And Reverend Riddell will light the BIOPOC candle for us. Let's recite our BIOPOC statement. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as they journey toward spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, and equity for all prevail.
For the past 23 years, November 20th has been known as the Trans Day of Remembrance, a day set aside to remember trans and gender nonconforming people who have lost their lives to hatred and to violence. To speak their names into the world and into our hearts so that they are not forgotten and so that we may carry the grief and anger of their passing into our lives and into our communities. And so that we may dedicate our lives to ending this violence and building a world where all of our kin are safe and seen and recognized for the beautiful expressions of love that they are. This morning, I will read the names of the 39 known victims of anti-trans murder in our nation since last year's Trans Day of Remembrance. The number worldwide is vastly larger. Almost 400 names have been recorded, and those are those who we know to be trans and whose deaths were recorded. We cannot know the true number. So we light our candle, our memorial candle. After we read each name, we will pause for a moment of honoring silence. Will you please rise in body or in spirit? Nikai David, Oakland, California. Martina Caldera, Channelview, Texas. Zanaya Williams, Houston, Texas. Keahana Stone, Indianapolis, Indiana. Nikki Turrieta, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Amare Lej, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Duval Princess, Jacksonville, Florida. Matthew Angelo Spampinato, Newcastle, Delaware. Naomi Skinner, Highland Park, Michigan. Cypress Ramos, Lubbock, Texas. Brent Wood, Seattle, Washington. Catherine Newhouse, Canton, Georgia. Tanya LaBelle, Chicago, Illinois. Kesha Webster, Jackson, Mississippi. Mia Love Parker, Chester, Pennsylvania. Ariana Mitchell, Hampton, Virginia. Fern Feather, Morristown, Vermont. Ray Muscat, Independence Township, Michigan. Sasha Mason, Zebulon, North Carolina. Nedra Sequence Morris, Opelika, Florida. Maddie Hoffman, Malvern, Pennsylvania. Annalika Yella Dior Hemingway, Albany, New York. Brazil Johnson, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Charmaine McClam in Gulfport, Mississippi. Kitty Monroe, Memphis, Tennessee. Harry Bush, Los Angeles, California. Jasper Aaron Lynch, McLean, Virginia. Jimmy J. Lee, Lafayette County, Mississippi. Artasia Richmond, Chicago, Illinois. Shia Chanel Getter, Augusta, Georgia. Hayden Neva Davis, Detroit, Michigan. Camilla Marie Swan, Kansas City, Missouri. Maricela Castro, Houston, Texas. A.C.D. Morrison, Rapid City, South Dakota. D.D. Ricks, Detroit, Michigan. Regina Maya Allen, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Emar Sincere Billingsley, Jacksonville, Florida. Tiffany Bank, Miami, Florida. And the victims of the shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs, whose names we do not yet know. Please be seated and join me in a moment of prayer. Fire of the Spirit, lifeblood of the universe, source and child of life, always part of us as we are part of you, though we forget and believes ourselves separate and alone. We remember today these children of the universe whose lives were cut short by fear and hatred. We mourn the loss of their spirit and vision and hope. We break the silence of ignorance and fear by speaking their names aloud here in this room. May their names ring in our ears and our hearts as we greet each new choice to act in the world. May we strive to build a world where we can be silent on this day because there are no names to read. When each holy life can flourish and shine and bless the world in dignity with their joy, passion, and rich beauty. May we remember that we are inextricably linked to each other, part of the vast fabric of the cosmos, woven into a common life and a common destiny. May we rejoice in the glorious variety and strength of the cloth that we weave with our lives. May we protect all of the children of this universe, of our communities, with the strength of our love and the strong conviction of our actions for justice and celebration. And may we cherish each life as a gift of love to the world. Will you join me as we sing, How Could Anyone Ever Tell You? We'll sing it twice through, the words are on the screen. And these are the joys and sorrows of our own hearts today, the pieces of our lives that bring us hope, bring us grief, that we share with each other. We light a candle, as someone writes, that my heart aches for my father's birthplace, Colorado Springs. Candle of gratitude, saying thank you to Reverend Ian, Jeffrey, and our choir for the beautiful music. And Vanessa, it makes for a glorious start to a Sunday morning to begin with such beauty. If you get here early, you can hear the choir. We light a candle of grief shared with Colorado Springs victims. Joan and Gloria light a candle for Hector, a candle of blessing for Hector, who on Thursday chose death with dignity on to his eternal joy. Tom and Julia Burbank light a candle in memory of my mom, Denise, who passed away November 6th at the age of 91. We know she is rejoicing with my dad, Lyle, and brother Leo, but she will be so missed. Lighting a candle to remember those lost in Colorado Springs. And Laverne and Jim light a candle in remembrance of all transgender violence, and ask that we support all efforts to protect their rights. These are the joys and the sorrows that claim our hearts this day that we speak out loud. And there are joys and sorrows, fears and triumphs that live still in the quiet of our hearts. And so, in the face of the violence in the world, we turn to the love in this world. The love that reminds us that we are part of a larger love that is bigger and broader and longer and more complex than we can ever know, and that we are all a part of. And so, gathered together today, we pause in quiet, breathing in that love, breathing out peace and hope, grateful for each other, and grateful for that love which brings us to a new place. We breathe together in quiet. May all beings know safety. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. Sing with us, please. Spirit of love. Thank you, choir, for reminding us why we're all together. And Pam, thank you for sharing your story with us today. Really grateful that you were willing to share so much of yourself with us and remind us again why we're here as well. It was a great joy. Pam was one of the folks who was with us when we walked in the Pride Parade earlier this month. Many of you were there in the parade. Many of you were there on the sidelines cheering us along. Lots of you were here in worship. But it was wonderful to join in a joyful celebration of life and love and queerness and progress, to be surrounded by the assertion that our lives were worth protecting, worth celebrating. And the naming of names we spoke earlier and the news out of Colorado early this morning remind us that our work is not done, despite our successes, joys, and celebration. Because the world and its needs are not sitting still, the work of healing the world isn't done. How do we choose who to be when we wake up into a world where the rights and safety and the lives of LGBT folks are still being threatened and eroded and destroyed? With the ringing of the bell of remembrance in our ears, I want to ponder this question for a little while this morning. I want to pause a moment here and acknowledge my position and my privilege. I am a white, cis, gay man. Simply said, that cis means that my gender expression matches my biological sex. I have an awareness that I am speaking today about issues that have a much deeper impact on the lives of safety of members of our community who are trans or gender nonconforming. I hope that we, you and I, can commit to listening to the voices of communities outside of our experience and try our best not to speak for them. And as you will hear in the next while, I'm speaking because I feel that cis people have been called by many in the trans community to speak and act in new ways. Because we are living in a time when individuals and governments are fueling the fires of hatred and mistrust. There is a movement aimed at systematically removing protections from trans folk. In school classrooms and libraries, banning books and curriculum. In doctors' offices, banning treatments. In public facilities everywhere, even in our own homes. Not only do these attitudes and actions deny the vast diversity that is gender, not only do they serve to increase the possibility or probability of discrimination, of violence, they actively serve to erase the reality of trans lives, and they provoke and inspire deadly violence. The rhetoric and in these acts and in the ongoing policing of bathrooms, for example, seeks to demonize and criminalize not the behavior of trans people, but their very existence. The argument made by people who support actions like these, if they're willing to argue at all, is not that trans folks shouldn't be treated well or fairly or appropriately. It's that trans folk don't exist or shouldn't exist. This is what the current crop of changes is about, and why resistance to them, our resistance to them, is necessary more than ever. There's a group called Transgender Religious Professional Unitarian Universalists Together. It's called Trust. That's an easier way to say that. Put out a call a while ago to change the way we, cis folks, support trans UUs. In the face of the ongoing rhetoric and initiatives against the trans community, Trust called us to take action. Now, they asked that we donate to fund trans UUs' healing and survival, that we be accomplices for trans UUs in the resistance in their life, that we remember as we're hiring to think about hiring religious professionals who are trans in our congregations or region, to engage in education and transformation, and to take action as congregations on next moves to increase trans access, inclusion, and affirmation. In other congregations I've served, trans UUs have shared that they don't feel that their congregation is fully inclusive of them. Trans colleagues have shared the struggle and pain many of them have experienced in their congregations, silencing, obstruction, indifference. Remember what I said to you in September about how different people experience life and reality in very different ways. Not everyone's experience of our congregations and our neighborhoods is the same. So trust is calling on all UUs and Unitarian Universalist congregations to do the next thing they haven't done yet, not maintain their current level of support. Kai Isaiah Jamal, who's a trans spoken word poet, wrote this. In a world where misconstrued ideas about trans folk, what we need, what we deserve, how we should live, fall from the lips of so many cis people, we need to end the debate on whether trans women are women, whether we should be able to use the correct bathrooms and changing rooms, and whether it should be parents or teachers, because it's not a debate. We are entitled to our human rights just as much as everyone else. And they continue, what we actually need are ears, eyes, and action. We need you to listen to our problems and our voices. We need you to be on the lookout for how you can use your privilege for our benefit and not yours, and how to actively respond to, argue with, and call out transphobia in your everyday conversation and in the national news. End of the quote. From respecting people's pronouns to calling out transphobia wherever you are, to supporting trans creators, to funding trans organizations, the list reminds us of the breadth and depth and complexity of the lives and experiences of our neighbors, and of the many, many ways we choose to dehumanize and erase those neighbors. It's a call to act in new ways, ways that affirm dignity and worth and relationship, ways that acknowledge the vast diversity of trans experience and reality. There are a couple of things running through this that I want to highlight. First, trust your trans neighbor's expression of their experience. Hear the stories. If they say to you that something that just happened was transphobic, don't argue with them. If it is pointed out to you that something that you have done or said is hurtful, don't get caught up in arguing. Listen. Apologize. Reflect. When we argue with someone who shares their lived experience with us, we deny them the reality of their experience. We dehumanize them, and we place our need for comfort and feeling good about ourselves above their safety and integrity. When we respond with loving curiosity, with humility, we elevate the dignity of the person in front of us, strengthen relationship, and show that we take seriously the values we espouse. And the second one, speak up to friends, family, community members, elders. You are not a true ally if you allow your partner to use transphobic language. Educate your friends and family. If a trans person is being verbally assaulted, made to feel unsafe or uncomfortable, or being attacked in any way and needs your help, open your mouth. Talk to the generation above you and below you, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles. You can't always change traditional mindsets, but you can give them a new perspective. This is almost always going to be uncomfortable. We need to get used to being uncomfortable. We need to make the choice to disrupt the status quo in service of changing it. It can feel subversive to do this. It can feel like we're misbehaving or not being nice or polite. And it can be all of those things. But to heck with nice. When a cis person speaks out, interrupts transphobia, or diffuses a potentially violent situation, it can feel risky. The risks that our trans kin face, though, by simply being themselves in the world can be astronomically higher. This is painfully and abundantly clear on this Trans Day of Remembrance. This week is a time when we acknowledge with grief the way in which the lives of our trans neighbors and kin are threatened and made risky by hatred and violence and ignorance. When the lives of our children and their parents and their doctors' ability to care for their children are threatened. When a bigot with a gun, inspired by violence, rhetoric, and hate, can violate community. We cannot imagine ourselves as saviors, but we can heed the call to work to change our hearts and our relationships and our communities, to work to change ignorance into loving curiosity, change violence into safety and welcome, and change hatred into deep love. I hope you'll take that journey. We're going to sing a song to close our service today that you probably don't know. The words are on the screen. I'm going to sing the first verse. We're going to sing the first verse 3 times. Pick it up as you feel comfortable, and then we'll replace. You'll figure it out. This is a song. We'll start. We'll do singing, praying, and strengthened by. It will make sense as we do it. I promise. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, here for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, here for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are again. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, here for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are singing. We are singing in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are singing in the memory of those who have fallen, singing for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are praying in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are praying in the memory of those who have fallen, praying for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are strengthened by the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are strengthened by the memory of those who have fallen, strengthened by the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, here for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are.
Folks, it's already time to extinguish our chalice and get out there in the world and be one with one another and counter anger and fear with hate and love. Not with hate, with love only. Let's extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Will you take a deep breath and let it out? There is room in our world for righteous anger in the cause of justice. There is room and need for dogged commitment and fierce action. There is need for the space for grief and mourning. But the world cries out also for kindness, not a kindness of condescension or patronizing, not niceness, but a kindness of kin offering each other support and hope. A kindness that looks in the face of difference and chooses to see beauty. A kindness that sends us back into the day to listen when people tell us who they are. A kindness that demands that the world become a place that celebrates the shining on each and every one of its children. There is grief in what we have done here today. There is grief and sadness in our lives and the world around. We must take time to acknowledge and sit with that sorrow, to understand where it comes from, and to be sure to speak the cause to the world, forbidding silence to continue to mean death. Our hearts are broken, and through the cracks in our broken hearts grow kindness and tenderness and mercy and hope and courage. Our broken hearts are the ground of our steadfast faithfulness to our kin in this life. They are the ground of our hearing the courage and resilience of our neighbors in the face of all of that. Let us promise ourselves and our children and our neighbors' children that when the time comes to choose between love and fear, we will always choose love. Because the work is not done until each and every one of our children lives in a world that embraces and cherishes them for who they are, challenges them to live their gifts to the fullest, and rejoices in their flourishing. May we see the beauty in every face we meet. May we treasure the gift of vision and transformation and courage brought to us in each new relationship and in the treasured history of each old relationship. May we greet our children and our neighbors' cries for recognition and hope with joy and welcoming. And may we live in solidarity with all of our neighbors and kin as we move together into the light of each new day. For the flourishing of life and the triumph of love, may it be so. Go in peace, my friends, to love, serve the world.